Hello guys, today we're going to be doing a video on Spider-Man Remastered using the RTX 3080. We're going to be starting it off with 1080p on the low settings. 1080p, and then this is the low preset. I didn't touch any of the actual settings. And yeah, let's jump into it. I'm not going to be spending too much time on the lower presets since we're running at 3080. So we'll spend a minute on each preset, and then once we get up to 1440p and 4K, that's when I'll actually spend a little bit more time on it. We've got DLSS ray tracing as well, which we'll be testing out as well. And as always, if you like what you see, hit the channel behind to push it as well. We're 20 subs away, 20 or 30 subs away from 1,000 subs. So, alright, so far we're getting 150 FPS with our GPU sitting at 60%. So it's doing quite well. So a bunch of stuff about the game running really poorly. But so far it's running... I guess that GPU usage is kind of high for 1080p with a 3080. But
hello? Parker,
I guess we'll see how it does at 4K and all that.
At least once before the grant committee arrives.
Yes.
Now I did try changing presets while playing and the game crashed, so I don't want to have to restart the game over and over again. So hopefully it doesn't crash on me while I'm playing. The game looks pretty decent actually on the low settings. We're not playing on the very low preset, we're playing on the low preset. And even at 1080p, it's looking kind of decent. The buildings in the distance look kind of pixelated, but stuff up close, we just got to stutter there. Stuff up close looks pretty good. Let's see how this does. We're not... Okay. So far it's running quite well.
Gotta warn you, I'm feeling punchy today.
GPU usage is kind of high to be honest for low settings at 1440p. We're at 80% already. But we are pushing 100 FPS, so maybe we can actually play at 60 FPS once we get up to those higher settings and higher resolutions. I will have the Steam Deck video out tomorrow. I might post it in 12 hours. And I'll also have the RTX 3060 Ti video as well, hopefully soon. Getting 130 FPS while swinging around the city. No stuttering or no lag spikes at all. It's running really well. Alright, we're playing at 4K now. And the GPU is fully maxed out now. Still pushing around 100 FPS during this in-game cutscene.
Get more backup and lock down the airspace.
I'll turn on ray tracing once we get up to those higher settings. You know, using ray tracing on the low settings doesn't really make any sense. So once we get up to medium and high, I think it's probably a good spot. I'll turn on ray tracing. I actually haven't played the original one on PS4, so it's my first time playing this game. Looks pretty good at 4K, I can't even lie. Even on low settings, this looks really good. Doesn't look pixelated at all, and the actual graphics look really good as well. Which gives me hope for the Steam Deck. This should run quite well on the Steam Deck once we get up to those lower settings. It gives us a lot of options to actually tune it. And the game's already verified, so we can just straight up use SteamOS. Alright, we're playing the game at 1080p medium settings now. The game crashes when you actually change the settings in the middle of gameplay. So you gotta restart the game and change the settings then, or we'll just freeze up on your... it will just freeze up. It's kind of annoying. This video will just take a long time to do, I think.
Down! Gotta take those shooters out.
Medium settings doesn't look too different compared to low settings. It's indoor scene anyway. But it's running quite well either way, 160 FPS. For indoors we get around 220 FPS if it's a very easy scene, and we get around 160, 150 FPS once we're actually outside. Our FPS dropped down from around 170, 150 FPS to 130, 140. Not bad. And then indoors, this very easy indoor scene, we're getting 170 FPS instead of 220, 230 FPS at 1080p. Game looks really good though. Takedown, let's go. So far, running super smooth. We had like 2 stutters from the beginning till now, and it was mainly because we were loading into a new scene.
Oh, you guys forgot the latest kernel patch.
Hasn't happened since though. Still holding over 100 FPS here, not bad. Game looks so much better at 4K.
Everyone clear out. Evacuate
It looks
the
good at 1440p, but the sharpness is crazy at 4K. I gotta hold it, I'm just tapping it.
More people back that way.
I'll find them.
There's heaps of particles here because of the smoke and...
I'll lift it. When you're free, get out fast. If you can walk, help the injured. Got it?
Finally in the free roam, so we can actually see what FPS we get outside.
No, don't. It's not safe.
It's actually higher than what we were getting during the mission. We were sitting around 80 to 90 FPS, so now we're sitting at 110 FPS outside, so actually free roaming is a little bit easier than actually playing at 1080p, and then we're playing on the high preset as well. No ray tracing, but I'll turn it on during the preset, and no DLSS either, since we are way above 60. If we don't fall below 60 in this video, I'll be definitely using it with the 3060 Ti, which I'll be uploading after this video is out. So you can check that out if you want to see the DLSS, if I don't use it in this video. Playing at 1080p, this looks very blurry compared to 4K. Well, not blurry, it looks very pixelated in the free roam area. Indoor scenes, it looks pretty good, but free roam, it's not looking the best. Looks very pixelated. But we are getting 100 to 120 FPS. GPU sitting at 70%, so we've got a decent amount of headroom there. I mean, obviously 1080p 3080 is going to absolutely crush it. Same with 1440p, so 4K is probably going to be the spot where we might run into some trouble, especially if we enable ray tracing. I want to go ahead and actually quickly enable ray tracing now. Hopefully it doesn't crash the game, because it definitely does at the other times. Yeah, the game just freezes. Oh my god, this game is... Oh, there we go, it actually didn't crash. I was going to say. Okay, and we're getting 120 FPS before, so let's see what we get now. Not bad. So we lost 40 FPS by enabling ray tracing. Let's go ahead and look around. Those look really good on the car. Wow, that looks really good. We are playing at 1080p, so not the highest resolution, but does look really good. And it only tanked around 40 FPS from what we had before, so it's still very playable, obviously. Now this looks really good. We got heaps of sharpness now. Game looks really crisp. No more pixelation like we were getting before. Okay, I gotta swing. FPS is at 110. GPU usage has jumped up to 80% instead of 70%. So a 10% increase. Game looks far better though. I would not want to play at 1080p with this game. And hopefully we lose about 40 FPS as well, because it's running very similarly to what we had before, as you would expect since we weren't GPU bottlenecked. We had a 30% headroom on our GPU at 1080p, so obviously it's going to run the same once we increase the resolution, since that's GPU bound. At 80%, and we're getting 80 to 90 FPS right now, so we dropped around 30 FPS. 78 FPS is the lowest that I've seen. The shadows on the cars look a bit weird though. But those are real-time reflections, they look really good. They look a bit weird though. I don't know. This looks incredible at 4K. Really sharp. And as you can see, the reflections look far worse. It's basically like... It's very basic. Alright, let's go swinging. GPU is fully maxed out. We're sitting at 90 FPS now instead of 120. And at 1440p we're sitting at 80% GPU usage, so we have lost all our headroom for our GPU. But still way above 60. So high preset might be the sweet spot for this card, if you want to play at 4K. Ray tracing though, I'm sure we're going to fall below 60. Maybe like 50 FPS. After we started the game crashed when I enabled ray tracing at 4K high. But it's running fine once we actually restart it. We're getting 70 FPS, so running real nice. A lot of people were complaining about the performance, but we're getting 70 FPS at 4K at high settings with ray tracing. Even with Dying Light 2, that could not run at 60, I don't think, at 4K with ray tracing. I think it was sitting at 30 FPS, 30 to 40 FPS, so we were forced to use DLSS. But Spider-Man is running real good.
Spider-Man. I know a guy who knows a guy at the network. Imagine the morning show.
Yeah, it looks really nice. We can do some swinging as well. Getting around 65 FPS, mid 60s. But normally you're going to be sitting around in the 70s. We're playing at 1080p now, max settings. I've enabled anti-aliasing as well, since I didn't see it actually in the graphics preset, which is kind of weird. So I've actually enabled it, and we're playing on the very high preset, which is the max preset. No ray tracing to start it off. And let's see if the reflections are actually fixed with anti-aliasing. 1080p is not going to be an issue at all. We're holding over 100 FPS still, even at max settings, with anti-aliasing as well, with a 30% GPU headroom. So it's obviously going to crush it at 1080p. We're running at 3080. Game does look a bit blurry now with anti-aliasing enabled. TAA is normally blurry as well, so you can try them out and see which one you like the best. VRAM is sitting at 8 gigs though, and this is a 10 gigabyte card. I don't have the 12 gigabyte version, so we might run into a VRAM issue at 4K. Hopefully not, but I guess we'll find out. Doing ray tracing, let's see if the reflections are fixed. This looks very muted. We're gonna go into somewhere where there's actually lighting going on. But we're getting 80 FPS so far, so we lost around... Is it not working? Because it looks very muted. We do have ray tracing enabled. Maybe we go up the windows. These are not the most reflective. Game does feel a bit more stuttery now at max settings. With ray tracing, it does feel a bit stuttery. And does it have motion blur enabled? It looks very motion blurry. Alright, playing at 1440p now. No ray tracing. We got DLSS enabled. And FPS is the 80s to 90s. It's running quite well. But we are getting some stutters, just like 1080p. It's very minor, it happens here and there. For like a frame or two. But kind of ruins the experience when it keeps happening. So I would actually avoid playing on the very high settings so far. And just stick to high. Looks just as good. Ideally what you want to do is you want to play at 4K. Or like a higher resolution than 1080p, because it just gives you a far better visual quality, a far better image, and you're still getting over 100 FPS as well. This looks really good. Oh, the game is bugging out a little bit, but those look really good. The stutteriness isn't going away though, we're still getting them, and it's far more aggressive with ray tracing enabled. But FPS is still above 60, so you technically can play without using DLSS. We are playing at 4K now, and we're just at 60 FPS. So with ray tracing, we're going to fall below 60, so we're going to use DLSS to actually bring us back up. Game is looking incredibly sharp, but we're still getting some stutters. VRAM still at 7.5 gigs, so it didn't actually increase surprisingly. Normally when you go up to 4K, it does spike up a little bit, but the game is pretty unstable, to be honest. They need to patch it up a little bit. It runs quite well if you stay below very high settings, but it will crash, it will freeze up on you if you do anything with the settings pretty much. Especially if you're doing it at 4K. But we're playing at 4K with ray tracing now. Let's go ahead and double check the settings. 4K, very high settings, ray tracing enabled. And we're just below 60 now. When you pan the camera, it does feel a bit choppy. Oh, we're actually in the low 50s now when we're swinging up. It's barely on the edge of 60, with some dips into the 50s. Not bad, still a good experience. Alright, using DLSS. We're using DLSS, right? Why is it not improving the FPS? Using DLSS at quality, FPS got worse. Our FPS actually fell to the low 50s. Alright, that's it for the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, give it a like. And a thumb to the channel, I'd appreciate it as well. Alright, see you next time.